What's up everyone, I'm Lockouts, and in this video we're going to be talking about the pre-patch class changes for Deathknights. Check this out.
Won't you do a favor for me? Take your mouse and click the button, won't you subscribe to me? Lockouts providing the content that you see. I'm visually stimulating your mind, 1 minute at a time.
Alright guys, jumping right into this, I will say right off the top, I am covering every single class that they are changing because they are changing all 13 classes, and Deathknight alone is going to be just a video within itself because this is a huge blue sticky post and there's a lot of stuff that they're changing. With that being said guys, we're going to jump right into it. Rune Strike is no longer a Blood Deathknight talent and has been redesigned to be a rune spender and runic power generating ability used during the initial Deathknight leveling experience. Rune Strike will be replaced with Festering Strike, Heart Strike, or Howling Blast when a specialization has been chosen. When swapping weapons, the off-balance debuff is applied and prevents the Deathknight from gaining the bonuses of rune forging enchantments for 30 seconds. That's to be noted. All Deathknights can now use the following abilities: Death Coil, Death and Decay, Raise Dead, Chains of Ice, Lichborn, Anti-Magic Zone. No matter what spec that you guys are, Frost, Blood, or Unholy, you guys can use all of these now. They are baseline abilities for all three specs. Rune Forging, huge one right here, guys. Not only do we get all these baseline abilities and specs, we also have 5 new runes available to engrave upon our weapons. So we have all of these new weapon enchantments that we get to go and engrave on our weapons from Rune Forging. The first one is Rune of Sangulation. Your Death Strike deals increased damage based on the target's missing health. When you fall below 35% health, you heal for 50% of your maximum health over 6 seconds. Can only occur once every 5 minutes. The next one, Rune of Spell Warding, deflects 3% of all spell damage and has a chance to create a shield that absorbs magic damage equal to 10% of your maximum health. When an enemy damages the shield, their cast speed is reduced by 10% for 6 seconds. The third one, Rune of Hysteria, increases maximum runic power by 20, and your attacks have a chance to increase runic power generation by 20% for 8 seconds. Rune of Unending Thirst. When you kill an enemy that yields experience or honor, gain 5% haste, 5% movement speed, and heal you for 5% of your maximum health. Additionally, increases your movement speed while dead by 10%. That's awesome. And now, Rune of the Apocalypse. Your ghoul's attacks have a chance to apply an additional effect. Famine reduces the damage dealt to the Deathknight. Death reduces healing done. Pestilence slows the target and deals damage over time. War increases damage taken from the DK. PvP talent changes. Lichborn has been removed. It's now just a baseline ability. Alright guys, and the very first thing that they have here is Blood, and it says that Rune Tap is no longer a talent that will be learned by all Deathknights. It's no longer a talent, and it will be learned by all Deathknights at level 19. So additionally, Rune Tap has 2 charges and the global cooldown is removed, so it's no longer on the GCD. The following talents have been adjusted. New talent, Relish in Blood. While Crimson Scourge is active, your next Death and Decay heals you per bone shield charge and immediately gain 10 runic power. New talent, Death Pact. Create a Death Pact that heals you for 50% of your maximum health, but absorbs incoming healing equal to 30% of your maximum health for 15 seconds. The next one is Mark of Blood and has had its runic power cost removed and healing increased to 3%. It was 2%. Rapid Decomposition now has an additional effect. Your Blood Plague leeches for 50% more health. Anti-Magic Barrier now reduces the cooldown of Anti-Magic Cell by 20 seconds. It was 15 seconds and increases its duration and amount absorbed by 40%. It was 30%. Voracious now grants you 15% leech for 8 seconds. It was 6 and has an additional effect. Death Strike's healing is increased by 20%. Red Thirst now reduces the cooldown on Vampiric Blood by 1.5 seconds per 10 runic power spent. It was 1 second. Consumption and Bone Storm now capped at a target's Ossuary has been removed and will be learned by all Blood Deathknights in Shadowlands. PvP talent changes for the Blood DK is new PvP talent, Rot and Wither. Your Death and Decay rots enemies each time it deals damage, absorbing healing equal to 100% of the damage dealt. That's cool. Unholy Command has been removed. I don't think I ever used that really anyways. Moving on now to Frost. Obliterate, Frost Strike, Frost Sheath, and Glacial Advance can now be used with two-handed weapons. Awesome. I can't wait to play Frost, dude. I kind of missed this. I got burned out by it, and now I miss it because we've been playing Unholy for so long. The next one, new passive, Might of the Frozen Waste. I said mid for some reason. New passive, Might of the Frozen Waste. Rank 1, while dual wielding, your Obliterate and Frost Strike will also strike with your offhand, and you can engrave each weapon with a Rune Forge enchant. Awesome. Rank 2 increases your Obliterate damage by 35% and Killing Machine proc chance when using a two-handed weapon. That's awesome. Frostworm's Fury is no longer a talent and will be learned by all Frost DKs at level 44. That's awesome. Empower Rune Weapon and Pillar of Frost no longer have a global cooldown. This is no longer on your GCD, so you can burst and still be in your rotation. Awesome. Howling Blast and Breath of Cindergrosa now deal reduced damage on secondary targets. The following talents have been adjusted. A new talent, Hypothermic Presence. Embrace the ice in your veins, reducing the runic power cost of your abilities by 35% for 8 seconds. Runic Attenuation proc rate has been adjusted to bring dual wealth and two-handed closer together, and the runic power gain has been increased to 5. It was 3. Blinding Sleet now has an additional effect. When Blinding Sleet ends, enemies are slowed by 50% for 6 seconds. That's sick. Ice Cap now reduces the remaining cooldown on Pillar of Frost by 4 seconds. It was 3. Frost Sheet now capped at 5 targets. Wow, dude, Frost is awesome. I can't wait to blind somebody and then they're slowed. Now, Unholy has got a lot of changes, and this is where we're going to be finishing this up, guys. Mastery Dreadblade now also increases the damage of your minions' abilities. Epidemic is no longer a talent and will be learned by all Unholy Deathknights at level 34. Additionally, Epidemic's range has been reduced to 40 yards. It was 100 and will fail to cast if there are no nearby enemies afflicted with Virulent Plague. So that's a cool change. That's actually because that was a little OP. 100 yards, it was way out there, and you're still cracking people off with Epidemic. You were like a ranged DK in Battlegrounds, but it makes you actually have to play closer with your class. Sudden Doom now causes your auto attacks to have a chance to make your next Death Coil or Epidemic cost no runic power. That's cool. Scourge Strike now prefers targets with Festering Strike inside of Death and Decay. This is awesome. This is actually showing people that they should be using their Scourge Strike when they drop their Death and Decay on their Festering Wounds. It means that it's going to prefer it. That's a good change right there. Outbreak's duration of Virulent Plague increased to 28 seconds. It was 21. That's cool. Virulent Plague no longer has a 30% chance for infected enemies to erupt to nearby enemies each time it deals damage. An area of effect range increased to 10 yards and it was 8. So your plague no longer has a chance to erupt anymore, and its range is now 10 yards instead of 8. All right, Army of the Dead, rune cost is reduced to 1, and it was 3 runes. That's cool. Scourge Strike and Clawing Shadows now capped at 5 targets while inside of Death and Decay. Both abilities will prefer targets if inflicted with Festering Wounds. So if there are more than 5 targets that are inside of your D&D when you guys are starting to pop your wounds, it's only going to pop the ones that have, it's going to prefer the ones actually that have Festering Wounds on there from your Clawing Strikes or your Scourge Strike. So that's a cool little adjustment right there. The crappy thing is it's only capped at 5 targets now, so no giant AoE eruptions anymore. The following talents have been adjusted. A new talent, Unholy Pact. Dark Transformation creates an unholy pact between you and your pet, igniting flame chains that deals shadow damage over 15 seconds to enemies between you and your pet. While active, your strength is increased by 5%. That's sick. Unholy Blight's disease now stacks up to 4 times and has an additional effect. Your minions deal 3% increased damage per stack to enemies afflicted by your Unholy Blight. Additionally, it applies Virulent Plague to enemies. Soul Reaper has been reworked and now costs 1 rune and has a 6-second cooldown. Strike an enemy for shadow damage and afflict the enemy with Soul Reaper after 5 seconds if the target is below 35 seconds. This effect will explode, dealing additional shadow damage to the target. If the enemy dies while afflicted, gain runic corruption. So this is kind of going back to how Soul Reaper used to work, where it was kind of like an execute. You just kind of had to time it and, you know, get your burst down there to get the guy low. So by the time that Soul Reaper went off, it would act as an execute. This is going to change up the way that Unholy's played. I like that. Defile now has an additional effect. If any enemies are standing in Defile, it grows in size and deals increased damage every second. That's cool. They kind of merged that talent in together with this from the way that it is in B.F.A now. Army of the Damned now has an additional effect. Apocalypse and Army of the Dead summon a Magnus of the Dead for 15 seconds who hurls frost bolts and shadow bolts at your foes. That's cool because this is an Azerite trait right now that you have to spec in your head, shoulder, or chest, and this is just going to be a baseline ability now. Unholy Frenzy has been reworked and renamed Unholy Assault. Strike your target with an unholy blow, dealing shadow damage, inflicting the target with 4 festering strikes, and sending you into a killing frenzy, increasing haste by 20% for 12 seconds. And Bursting Swords is now capped at 8 targets. Man, that's a lot of stuff that they did right there just for DK. What do you guys think about it? You guys like all these changes? If you guys think that this is going to be great for Unholy, Frost, and Blood DKs all the way around, leave your guys' comments below. I can't wait to try out DK and Shadowlands. Man, it's looking really, really, really good. I can't wait to actually play it in Shadowlands and not be in B.F.A. Click all the little buttons, everybody. Like, follow, subscribe. Help a fella out. I'm Lockouts. Peace.
Won't you do a favor for me? Take your mouse and click the button. Won't you subscribe to me? Lockouts providing the content that you see. I'm visually stimulating your mind 1 minute at a time.